But I'm so happy I had the courage to do something about it and not lay there as a victim, not lay there just blaming someone else, a factor outside of me, a person outside of me. Like, what a shame. My entire success is based on this and this alone. Your entire success is based on the disagreement you had with your spouse. Are you kidding me? On that one deal that fell through. Come on now. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Araujo, and I want to thank you for joining me today, bright and early on a Monday morning, just like the same routine for years and years. And if you've been here with A's and Associates, you understand that I'm going to be here regardless of what's happening in my world, what's happening around the world. I am going to be here, right? Because I've conditioned myself to realize that I am the sole owner of every action, every feeling, every emotion that I have. And it's real easy to kind of fall into this trap that, things are outside of us. The factors are outside of us. And if we start analyzing, and the quickest way to realize if we think factors are outside of us is to simply do a quick analysis of where you're at today, right? And you compare it to where you were at January 1st, 2022, where you were riding on this high about how great this year was going to be, about how things were going to change. You were going to get in the best shape of your life, have the most money in your bank account, have a successful business, have a great marketing strategy, have all these great things. And then you compare it to right now. And you'll be able to realize who owns your emotions, your actions, and your feelings. And if you're in a better place today, then you have taken full ownership. And I'm not just saying some aspects of what you're responsible for, right? If you have a family, you're responsible to being a good mother and a father. If you're in a marriage, you're responsible for showing up powerfully as a spouse. If you're a business owner, it is your responsibility to make sure that you have marketing strategies, that you have effective sales, that you have applied the systems, and that you're leading your company forward, that you're the visionary, that you're growing and expanding. Those are all your responsibilities. And that's ownership, taking ownership. And if you're like me and like every human here, it's a responsibility to take care of our bodies as well. The only vehicle we have to navigate through this great life we were gifted. I don't want to age to a point where I become a nuisance to my family because I'm unhealthy, because I didn't do the right things today or last year or 5 years ago in my 30s and now my 40s. And some of us are just disregarding all this. And it's because we have a lack of ownership. So you have to audit it. I'm not going to tell you have a lack of ownership. You have to decide. Go back to January 1st. Are you in better shape today? Then there's a part of you that is lacking ownership. Whether it's an excuse, whether it's a blame on someone else, whether it's something as simple as I'm not motivated. Like what the heck is that? That's a feeling. That's an emotion, right? And when you look at your bank account, is it in a better place? I would say for a lot of you it is. Congratulations. I would say for others, it's like, damn, you made a few bad decisions. What are you going to do about it? And as you start looking at your marriage and you as a parent, are things progressing forward? Or are you getting a little too comfortable? Are things getting worse? Are your best days behind you? Then you're lacking ownership. I had the privilege of talking to my coach and other very successful individuals the last week or so. And I understand it. I see it full on. Those individuals that own their feelings, their emotions, their actions have a life on fire. They're not being triggered every single day by something outside of them. They don't blame somebody outside of them. Because every time you get triggered, you're being weakened. Every time somebody forces you, or you feel like you're forced to do something you don't want to do, you're being weakened. And I see this a lot, where people are owned by the hardships that they faced 20 years ago as a kid. What a shame, right? The tragedies. I think we've all been through our fair share of things that are despicable, that were hard, that were debilitating. Yet 10, 15, 20 years later, you're still being owned. And I remember, as I was a young, supervisor with UPS, I was in the finance department. And one thing that I really appreciate about UPS, United Parcel Service, the guys in the brown suits, right? Well, I was on the management side, is that they have a no holds barred attitude. They had a type of mindset that things are going to get done, and you have to figure it out. Here are the goals. Here's what we have to accomplish. Go figure this stuff out. And I remember anytime I wouldn't hit a certain mar or a certain goal or target, I would often be triggered by my supervisor. And I appreciate him to this day because he owned my emotions. He owned me. And he would even make light of it. He would put out his hand out like this, and he would be like the salt. He was a Salt Bae before there was a Salt Bae. Like he would say, your emotions are in my hand, and he would go like this. Like he owned them. And that would just trigger the heck out of me, right? And I was the same guy that didn't have control of my emotions, didn't have a control of my future because I failed to own who I am and who I was. I failed to own my emotions. I failed to take ownership of my feelings, of my actions, and I always felt it was outside of me. And he would be like, yeah, I got you. I was like, man, I was the same guy that would, come unhinged anytime somebody cut me off. Everybody owned my emotions. Anytime Carla and I would have a disagreement, all of a sudden I was like, forget this. I'm not going to do anything for my business today. Like this dysfunctional loop. Like, what did that have to do with my business? Why am I going to destroy that? And some people do it completely opposite, right? Something that triggers them, there they go, destroying themselves by over drinking, over sedating, shutting down completely. Like I would go into this hole like some weak victim, because every time you allow yourself to think it's outside of you, you weaken yourself. And that's how I was showing up. I was weak. So I would lock myself up in a room, all dark, to escape myself from my marriage, from being a dad, from my business. I was a weak little man. Because I didn't know how to take ownership of my feelings, my emotions, and my actions. Anything and everything would throw me off, and anything and everything owned me. So when you start looking at your results today, you were being owned. If they're not better than what they were 6 months ago, then your laziness owned you. Your emotions owned you. Your feelings, your husband, your wife, your kids, your bills, the responsibility, your business all owned you. You had no control. Everything owned you. You were easily triggered, and your emotions and actions and feelings were at the mercy of someone else or something else. And I get it. Listen, we fall into that trap sometimes. The trap of hardships, of betrayal, of tragedies, maybe the environments you were brought up in, your relationship, food, alcohol, your spouse. Now, many people are now laying blame to the economy and interest rates. When in fact, there's like one constant between all these things. That is you. There's just different triggers because you've allowed them to be the triggers. Your own thoughts, your entitlements, and if you want success, it's about extreme ownership. And some things are visible and some things are not. Like I can't tell what's in your bank account. I can maybe tell by your actions, sense of desperation. I can't tell how good your marriage is. I can see what's on Instagram and Facebook. You're all smiling. It looks great. Looks awesome. I can tell on your health. Some of you were a lot healthier 6 months ago. And some of you are more healthy now. Congratulations. And there's ownership. And it all comes on the back of your thoughts and your feelings around that ownership. And laying blame on your spouse. Well, my spouse doesn't eat healthy. How is that your problem? Well, my spouse doesn't support me in business. Well, maybe for good reason. You haven't done anything. You haven't done enough. You haven't built the proper systems. You're not consistent with your marketing. How are you supposed to get support? But you don't see that when you're in a weakened state. I didn't see that for many years. I felt like it was everyone else's fault but mine. I was done wrong. No, I wasn't done wrong. I just felt, and I was in a weakened state. Because when you're in that place where everything triggers you, and you can tell, just look back 6 months, like I said. And I'll tell you if I see a more powerful person or a weaker person. You can actually tell. And you're falling into this victim mindset. And it's a compound effect. Just like when you feel powerful, when everything in your life is firing all cylinders, there were certain actions, there were certain emotions, there was certain ownership that you decided to take on. And listen, we're all going to face these hardships. We're all going to face problems in our marriage. But that shouldn't destroy all your momentum. That's just a moment in time. What are you going to do about it? Maybe there's some truth being spoken there. Every time Carla triggered me, it was because she was speaking the truth and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And I wasn't doing it enough. Or maybe you're like me, how I was. I look at everything she wasn't doing as a means to hide behind all the things I wasn't doing. And we could do this all day long. Be crabs in a bucket in our relationship. Crabs in a bucket in our family, with our friends. Or we can take extreme ownership and say, I'm not going to allow strangers to own what I'm going to do today. I'm not going to allow a simple disagreement to own what I'm going to do today. I'm not going to allow my clients. I'm not going to allow the other realtor. And some of you are thrown off big time by one little thing, but it's just a culmination of many things. Everything throws you off. Next thing you know, you're yelling at your kids, causing problems at home, overeating, overdrinking, overspending, trying to come out with an outlet with all this frustration. When you have to realize you're just being owned. But we could take this ownership. We could take these hardships and betrayal and tragedies and environments, relationship, and getting up in the morning, it's too early. Like everything becomes a reason not to do it. But we can actually take ownership of that. And those that are successful in all aspects and all elements of their life have taken extreme ownership. Like I look at all the people I look up to, it's like, holy, there's nothing that's outside of their control. Like nothing triggers them. They just get what they have to do done, period. Their feelings don't get in the way. Their emotions, laziness doesn't get in their way. Their habits, the environments they came from, the dysfunction they learned early on, none of that. The tragedies they overcame. And it gets to a point where you become, all those things become a reason why you don't achieve it, or they become the exact reason of why you do. And listen, we're all facing different things. Some of us are facing hardship right now, financial hardship. Some of you are facing tragedies, sickness, health issues within your family or within yourself. But when we fall trapped into that, we weaken ourselves. And then we become the people that say, well, this person did this to me. That's why I couldn't get to where I wanted to be. And I remember the reason why I started A's and Associates. You know, at first I thought it was a betrayal. I thought it was being done onto me. That somebody stole from me. That it was my account. I worked so hard. And even though I was in this little weakened state, I still mustered enough courage to do something about it. I just didn't sit there and lay blame. But I started this brokerage because my broker stole my account. It was during the REO days, and I don't tell this story publicly. It's not to shame somebody. I love these individuals now because I am here. Because their actions forced me to do what I've been thinking about for a long time, but just didn't have the courage to do it. And I remember it was we were going after this one big account. And mind you, I was the only person that did all the REO or the foreclosures in this operation. Closed hundreds and thousands of properties. And this big account, big government account, was now opening up there to let more brokers in. Well, it just turns out I wasn't the designated broker, right? But with their permission, I can grab this account since I had all the experience. I did everything. I built the whole thing. And I remember as I was flying out to Dallas to go meet with this government entity, I told my broker, I said, I'm going to go meet with this government entity. It was Freddie Mac. I'm going to go meet with Freddie Mac. And I remember just him sitting in the conference room and saying, good luck with that. I didn't process it. Well, it turns out he met with them a couple days before, and he used all my numbers. He used all my experience and claimed it as his. And I remember I felt so betrayed. I felt so weak. I felt so victimized. And I could have just sat there. I could have just switched brokerages and held on to that story of I didn't grab this big government account because of them. And I was going that way. And like I said, I don't think I'm a sliver of who I am today during that time. But I'm so happy I had the courage to do something about it and not lay there as a victim. Not lay there just blaming someone else, a factor outside of me, a person outside of me. Like, what a shame. My entire success is based on this and this alone? Your entire success is based on the disagreement you had with your spouse? Are you kidding me? On that one deal that fell through? Come on now. What a shame. Your entire trajectory is based on that and that alone, a factor outside of you. All that work, all that effort, and you lay there like a victim because of one person. Did it hurt? Hell yeah, it hurt. Was it a betrayal? Absolutely. I couldn't trust my own broker. Couldn't trust them. What a shame. But I just didn't move and start talking about this. This is many years later. It doesn't really matter. But I didn't wallow in my sorrows. I didn't wallow in my pity. Looking back, I'm just so happy I had that sliver of courage to do something about it. Or else I would have held on to that story of why I couldn't succeed to this day. And many of you are laying blame to your divorce, to your relationships, to the way your environments were, to someone that did something to you many, many, many years ago. They're like this. They're like Salt Bae with your emotions. They're triggering the hell out of you. To this day, what a shame. And I'm not trying to make light of any situation here. What I'm saying is we got to take extreme ownership. So there goes an account which equate to multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, over years, which could equate to millions. And that birthed AZ and Associates. Because I had a chip on my shoulder. A chip. Not a victim. A chip on my shoulder to do something about it. And now I'm living my best life ever. I'm living the type of life that I couldn't even fathom. I couldn't even formulate in my mind. I couldn't dream this up. The feeling I feel. Right? And those people that we think betrayed us and did us wrong, those hardships you went through, the environments you came from, they were there to trigger you to do something about it, not to lay victim of. And I tell this story because I love those individuals. I still know them to this day. I have no hatred. I have no ill will towards them. They felt that that was the way they needed to go. But it was a blessing in disguise. Because there was a flip side to that. And there's a flip side to every story you're living. Every story you're telling. And it starts with extreme ownership. So when you start looking at your emotions and your feelings and your actions, that's what you control there. So when you say things as little as, I can't get up, you're being owned. When you say it's my wife's fault, she doesn't support me or he doesn't support me, still your actions. You're being owned. And it's something as little as driving home and somebody else cuts you off and you're off the grid, angry. Something is owning you. Food is owning you. Alcohol is owning you. Laziness, habits, dysfunctions. Just like my old manager, you're being owned. So, what are we going to do about it today, right? Because you have a choice. You have a choice from now. We're going on 7 months in to the new year. 7 full months in. Are you going to be in a better position by December 31st? Or are you going to continue to go down the slippery slope of eroding the person you could become? Because that's what happens. We all have a certain standard, and every time we lay blame on somebody else, we're eroding that standard. So, if you're not in a better position now as you were in January 1st, okay. Don't dwell in it. Let's do something about it. Now you have a choice. From here, I know where I'm going by December 31st. Mark my words. My bank account is going to look better. I'm going to be healthier. My marriage is going to be more on fire. My daughters are going to be more connected with me. The business that I just started are going to be more profitable. I'm going to be a better marketer, a better leader. My life is going to be abundant and prosperous. Period. Period. Because I know I own my emotions, my feelings, and my actions. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ and Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.